Hi and welcome back to my channel. This time, I will walk you through the process of making an amazing blacksmith's apron. This particular design is based on my forging experience. The apron provides great protection while being very comfortable to wear. On top of that, putting it on and off is also quick and easy. Let me know in the comments what you think about the design or how would you improve it based on your personal experience.
No, Kevin. Banana.
To wrap up this video with actual forging, I will show you how to forge a little leaf pendant, so stay tuned until the end. When someone gives me any kind of free workable material, it sparks my imagination and drives me to create something useful out of it. A friend of mine gave me a couple of sheets of light leather that he used to work with as an upholsterer, and almost instantly, I knew I would make a blacksmith apron similar to my old one, but quite a lot fancier. The first step in this process is measuring and cutting the material. In this case, it is the main body of the apron, a pocket piece, and a belt strap to fill in the front upper fold. When finalizing the design, I realized that 3 layers of the leather will hold the brass grommets much safer. After cutting, I glued in the middle layer. When the glue dried, I could get to sewing. I decided to give it a go on my freshly bought sewing machine. I quickly realized that the machine simply doesn't have enough power to get through the leather, so I had to pull the wheel manually. As you can see, this operation proved to be quite a challenge. But, in the end, I managed to pull through with just one small interruption, so I had to fix that. If I were to sell this apron to a customer, I would never accept this messy stitching, but since this is just a prototype for my personal use, I settled on a compromise and decided that visually, only the front side matters. If it holds well together in the long run, I'm fine with the looks of the backside. For future projects of this kind, I will probably buy a proper leather sewing machine, but for now, this had to do. After I connected the threads in the middle, I had to secure the ends with hand stitching. The next thing in line was placing a couple of brass grommets. Now I am cleaning the curves of the lower end. And here I trim the pocket piece a little bit. And back to stitching. The preparation for the stitching took quite a lot of fiddling before I could actually start. It was also about time to wind up the bottom thread spool. And when I was finally done with the bottom thread, I realized that something else was going on here. Oh yes. The top thread, of course. Since I had only one spool of the thread, I had to disconnect the upper thread and direct it for winding of the bottom thread spool. Finally, I could start the stitching at last. This time it all went smoothly. Well, almost. After I stitched the perimeter of the pocket, I divided it and created a long, narrow pocket for a pen or a marker. And just like that, after several hours of trial and error, the stitching on the machine, driven by hand, was finally done. Before I could set the rivets, I had to make my own top and bottom rivet headers. The ones from the store were so expensive that I decided to save the money and give it a go on my lathe. For the bottom header, I reused a piece of 20mm round brass bar. First, I had to face it flush. Then I drilled 8mm shallow hole. Then I had to somehow bore the bottom of the hole to match the rivet head shape. I tried holding a reamer in hand and bore the hole this way, and it worked. The last step was finishing the hole with the sandpaper on the back side of the drill bit. For the top header, the process was almost identical. The main difference was in the starting material, since this time it was 10mm aluminium rod. Also this time I was not lazy and mounted the reamer in the tailstock. And this is how the headers look all finished. All in all, they look pretty good to me. So let's get back to riveting. The first step is to insert a male part of the rivet into the pre-cut hole. Then place it onto the bottom header. Cover it with female part and give it a good whack. So when I was done with riveting, I secured the grommets some more with a ball peen hammer and started working on the fastening rod. I should probably mention that where I am from, we use metric system exclusively. "46 centimeters is exactly this much, in inches." I picked a 6mm stainless steel rod that I use for knife handle pins. I cut it to length, ground the flat end. and started rounding it on my shop-made rounder to get a nice and even round shape. When the shape appeared to be rounded enough, I started flattening the other end of the rod. And of course, bigger hammer made the job much quicker. This was a pleasant experience in cold forging. The ends of the rod have work hardened during the process, and it made them tougher and less prone to bending in the final result. Quick grinding to clean it up, and let's get to final shaping of the ends. In my workshop, this ball-peen hammer sure gets a lot of use. The first hook was just a preparation for later when I squeeze it shut in the left grommet. Now you can see me finishing the second hook on the opposite side, which will serve as a quick, easy to use, and nice to look at mounting system. A little bit of care with a fine sandpaper. Now you get to see my gas forge in action. Sadly, nothing will be forged this time. Instead, I will heat the stainless rod to match the color of the apron's brass accessories. So all the metal parts will eventually be of the same color. It is no secret that the steel changes colors when heated. Different temperatures make different colors, and one of them is the color of brass. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something along the way. For more videos, check out my channel's content. Thank you, and have a good one.